I believe very deeply in the power of journaling as a tool to get to know yourself and get to know your story and engage with your thoughts in a direct way, which is something that we don't usually get to do a lot. Um, but one of the challenges that comes with journaling is the limit to it being just how honest you can be with yourself. And for a while, I was living in this contradiction of highly appreciating journaling as a tool, but at the same time, not doing it as often as I would like to. And the other challenge was also that when I did journal, I didn't know when to stop. So an entry would be too long and it was unsustainable to think about doing it every day because you can't write that many pages every day. And also writing as if I was sharing it with someone, right? And I think it's a beautiful thing to journal and to share that with other people. In some ways, what I'm doing now is kind of like journaling out loud and sharing it. And there is some beauty to that, but there should always be a place that is sacred, that is just your own, and in which you can sit down with your thoughts and explore what's going on in your mind, what you care about, what you feel, and what scares you. And getting to that level of just understanding yourself and understanding the things that you do that steer you away from that, that process can take a long time. And it surely did for me. For a long time, I wrote as if what I was writing in my journal had to be presentable to other people, as if it had to be some sort of book that I was like one day going to share. And this is not a problem with the form. If you want to write like that, and if you can write in an artistic way that is satisfying for you to write, you should definitely do it. But if your intention with keeping a journal is to just understand yourself better and explore yourself better, and what I've been doing recently, which is just taking charge of my life and understanding myself as the writer of my story, right? As I'm living it, I am writing it, not just as a passive witness, but also as the master of my life, right? Or at least of the things I can control in my life. If that's your goal, it's not very productive, or it's not very conducive to growth and change and to any feeling of control to present to your life, or to think your life has to be something presentable. So what I'm trying to say, as a reminder for myself, and hopefully as a warning for anyone who has considered journaling and who probably has fallen off from journaling, is that there's just something so beautiful about human beings being capable of processing their lives and their emotions and their thoughts in spoken words and also in written words. And there's also something just so soothing about the action of sitting down and actually getting your thoughts written, right? You can do it with your pen and paper, or you can do it in the computer, you can do it on your phone, wherever it is that you do it. What I think is the most important thing is that you are actually honest. And the uncomfortable truth about being honest with yourself is that, well, first of all, I think you're never really fully 100% honest with yourself, because there will always be a certain blind spot or some area where you don't realize you're lying to yourself. And part of growing is just realizing where you were lying to yourself, right? So today, I feel like I'm getting to a point where I can get to know myself and be honest with myself enough that I can face the challenges in my life and be honest with myself about what I want and why I want it and why I don't have it already, right? Which is probably the most uncomfortable truth to explore about yourself. And this whole thing just makes me realize that the more I get to know myself, the more I realize that I don't fully understand myself. And the reason why I don't fully understand myself is because there are so many experiences and so many things about myself that I have sort of turned blind eye to. Like, I decided this is not something I can acknowledge or like think about, and I just stopped acknowledging a part of myself, or I just stopped considering something that is part of myself as a part of myself, right? So getting to that point of honesty is just always going to be uncomfortable because it will necessarily put you in a position where you have to interact with your shadow, right? And the concept of a shadow can sound very mysterious, and I feel like if you hear people talk about it, sometimes you will feel like they're talking about something mystical or esoteric, right? And you can definitely see it like that. But there's also a more practical and like psychological way of seeing it, which is just your shadow being like the opposite of all of the things that you know about yourself and the things that you like about yourself, right? So if you consider yourself to be, let's say, as an example, a proactive person, that implies that your shadow is you being someone who's not proactive, right? So you could call it someone passive or someone lazy, unmotivated, right? The shadow is just important for your sense of identity because it gives you a balance. It gives you the thing that you're aiming for and the reason why you're aiming for it, right? And the shadow is just a part of you that is there, and it is just as important as it is for you to acknowledge the non-shadow part of you, which I guess you could call your ego, or the parts of you that you usually like, right? So I think another big challenge here is that we don't usually know when our shadows are the ones that are making decisions for us, and we don't know why our shadows are there. We just know that they're uncomfortable, and we know that we want to run from them, and we do things. We spend years of our lives trying to run away from our shadows when in reality they're just always going to be there, and they're always going to point you towards the thing that you should be pointing towards, right? So if in your shadow, going back to the same example, is the idea of being passive, or being inactive or unmotivated, there's something that happened to you or something in your story that made you have that, and that's why you're pointing towards being proactive, right? But the thing is that these two things, or seeing yourself as these two extremes, will make you, when you're thinking about your shadow, run away from it, and when you're thinking about your ego, to run towards it, right? I find that the best way to deal with it is to just be in the middle and understand a part of me was unmotivated, and a part of me was hurt by me being unmotivated. And I carry this wound with me, and I might carry it forever, but at the same time, I let this direct me towards being proactive, towards moving into the things that I want, talking to the people I want to talk to, right? Or doing the things I want to do. So when I set that example, I wasn't thinking about my own experience, but as I kept repeating it, I realized that that does have some truth to me, right? So it is just interesting how your brain is just always going to be about you, right? And I say this because these constructions, or like this conceptualization of a shadow, can feel very abstract, and people sometimes struggle, or like I think most of us struggle with understanding concepts when they sound abstract, because our brains are not really designed to understand that. But this is one abstract thing that has very real and very concrete implications for you and for us, for you and me, right? You direct your action running away from your shadow. And sometimes the shadow, or the things that are part of your shadow are not very fair to yourself. This is what I have learned about myself. What motivates me to share it today is thinking about how unfair I have been towards myself in the past, and how I let myself be my own enemy in some ways. And this is natural. It's a part of just being human, I think. But at the same time, it is fed towards so many cultural elements that we have in our current society that are not natural to the state of being a human being, right? I don't think human beings are meant to be in a position in which they are measured against how much they can produce, for example. And I think you could argue that the entire planet lives under that expectation now. How much can you produce and how much can you prove your worth to other people, right? Through value. That's not how our brains are wired to work, right? And that's why I think it's so important that when you're analyzing yourself and when you're treating yourself as something worthy of being studied, which I think every human being ever is worthy of being studied and being understood, and that you should be a student of yourself so that you can understand others as well. I think it's just crucial and fundamental that you do it with compassion and understanding the context. You can never remove yourself from the historical context in which you exist and like the implications that has. And it's just there's no way in which your existence is not going to have political implications and in which political decisions have not impacted you. And it's just impossible. So whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever your current situation is, whatever your past was, there have been political decisions that impacted you, and some of them, many of them, if not most of them, were not made by you. You did not decide the form of government you were born under, or the authorities that were ruling the world when you were born, or like the authorities that are ruling the world today, right? So do not extract the cosmos from the study of yourself, from trying to understand yourself. I encourage you to journal and to try your best to understand yourself with compassion and also challenging yourself, because it's the balance. Again, it's the shadow and the light, right? You have to do it with both, or you will lose the balance. When you take unbalanced action, ultimately you lose yourself. So be patient with yourself, be kind with yourself, and understand that the inside of you will always be impacted by the outside of you, but also the outside of you is always impacted by the inside of you. So you should pay attention to both. Pay attention to what's happening inside, to what has happened inside, and also pay attention to what's happening around you and how that impacts you and how you impact it. These are all elements that are constantly exchanging energies, and they're constantly impacting each other and ultimately impacting you, because you're not just the being alone, you are the being inside the environment. And that is true for all living species. So yeah, take it easy. That's what I'm saying.